what's up? It's Kit. Time for another video. Today, we're talking about Studio Ocean Mark and the good stuff that they create for anglers. If you're new to the channel, this channel talks about the hows and whys of fishing. We cover everything from big game, ultralight, everything in the middle, including fly fishing. And today's topic is all about Studio Ocean Mark. So we have a few products in front of us here. We'll take this away. Talk about these first. All right. So the one that I took was not a standard model. So we're talking about the standard model Blue Heaven later on, but they are a low production fishing reel company that specializes in jigging reels. And recently they've introduced a casting reel based on the Blue Heaven platform. They also have another reel, which is the Blue Safari, and it's geared towards people that are traveling. And it's kind of like a reel that's a do-all. I don't have one of those, or I'm going to talk about that when I have that reel, but they're very famous for accessories, and they make accessories for Daiwa and Shimano reels. This is just an example. I use the Shimano platform, so these are for the Stellas and Twin Powers. They're the core of the company is innovation. And I brought this out as an example because this is something that's useful for everyone. This is their hook remover. And it's not just like any other hook remover. Okay, so it has the same function almost. But there's this part here that's actually very useful. And what it is, it helps grip the hook when you remove it, and it lessens the damage, or actually kind of not really lessen, but eliminates the damage, because if you can see it moving up and down, the reason why it does that is so that when you're removing the hook, even if you're shaking the hook, the grip stays and it doesn't bend the hook, which is very important because as soon as you bend the hook, you know that it's kind of damaged. So it helps prevent that. Another thing, and this is where they went above and beyond, is this thing is very light. Very, very light. So not only does it function as a hook remover that doesn't damage your hook, but it's almost not there when you're walking around, especially when you're a light tackle fisherman. You're fishing the shores and you carry all of your stuff on you, and you hardly feel this on you. They make spools, and these spools are awesome. This is the older model, and there's a reason why I'm talking about this first. They're the first ones to actually introduce the radiator at the back of the spool. This dissipates 30% of the hook of the heat generated by the drag. So the heat affects your drag, and to make it more consistent, they put this here, and it works so well. So well, in fact, that Shimano has introduced something similar, which they call the heat sink drag. But Studio Ocean Mark actually did it first. This spool is about 7 years old, and Shimano only introduced it in their most recent models. It has upgraded drag washers as well. And the good thing about this is that I could put this on my 8,000 sized reel, and it turns that reel into a 16,000 sized reel. So you get an upgrade on capacity and power. Now, the newest iteration of this spool, which they call No Limits, is that they have this shape, a different shape. There's a dip, a different cut on both sides here. So it lessens the contact of the line as it leaves the spool, which gives you farther casts. So aside from the upgraded washers, the radiator, which in this case has also been upgraded, you have that function when you're casting. Now, when you're reeling in, what happens is because of those cuts, as soon as the loops come in go back to the spool of the reel, the cuts actually also help with tightening the loops so that you have less wind knots. So Those are the spools, and they were quite revolutionary when they were introduced. So when you're buying a reel, later on you'll find out that, oh, like in my case, the handle was too short for the 1500, so I had to buy a Studio Ocean Mark handle, and their handle or the knobs actually are foam, which makes it lighter. That's A. And B, it's also angled. Now, if you check with, say, a 2000 size OSHA jigger, it's actually straight. So some people like it that way, but a lot of people actually believe or can feel the difference when you're holding this. That slight angle kind of makes it feel as a natural hold, and you don't have to go like this. So feels great in the hand, so and doesn't hurt your wrist. Obviously, it's also not fair to compare this with the OSHA jigger because this is a lever drag reel. Now, the L-shaped lever that you have here is actually very important because, see, this side here is smaller, and when you grip it, you can manipulate your drag, make it go to the fight position or even max out with just your thumb on your palming hand. And the cuts that they have here on the side is, believe it or not, a feature so that when you're dropping, you could just feel and it's on strike. That's it. Instead of actually, using your other hand, which can be positioned right here, ready to reel. How they put this together is that when you put it on strike, each click of the lever adds 0.5 kg. So when you're at strike, you put it at fight, you have an extra 2 kg, and when you push it to max, it goes up to plus 3 kg. When you're at strike, you put it at minimum, it's minus 2 kg. And then obviously there's free spool. There are other models where you could actually use this as a fall lever. You could actually kind of do it with this one, although in the other one it's more refined, and that's their super top end model. Now, the free spool of this is actually kind of pretty unbelievable because, and the spool itself, it's free floating and it's supported by 2 bearings. Now we'll see those bearings later when we open up the reel. And there's a certain model, I think the smaller one, on the standard smaller one, the L30, there's a mechanism where when you turn the handle, it puts the drag to the strike setting, which is pretty cool, but it's not present on the bigger ones. This particular reel has a semi-waterproof drag, which we will see later. Drag washers are cork, and the gear on this is actually quite big. Very big gears, and they have large teeth, which we will see later. And the design concept of this reel is very different from, let's say, a Shimano. The engineering on the spools and everything that's on here is just amazing, as you would expect from a Japanese company. The bearings that they use is high strength, and they have a custom one-way bearing for this, and for the bigger sizes they put 2. The handle arms, of course, come stock. This is stock. You don't have to upgrade it, but it's already upgraded. The angular bearing needs to be actually mentioned. Now, on load, when you're fighting a fish, okay, there's a shaft here, and it gets pushed down because of the drag. And what happens is that these bearings kind of bind. But the bearings that they put on here, there's one here that's angular, and it carries the load. The angular bearings are load bearings, and they work better on load. So when you're cranking, even when the fish is pulling, it actually kind of just feels the same as this without load. So very, very good technology there. The thing that really attracted me to this fishing system, this reel, is the fact that it's very easy to maintain and it's very easy to open. Actually, this is the only jigging reel that's modular, and it made sense to me. So I'm going to show you guys exactly what I'm talking about here. So there are certain situations where you want to change your spool. It would be probably when your line is heavily damaged or you're stripped. God forbid, if your drag actually fails and you need your extra spool, it could also happen that way. But as you can see here, the screws are fixed and they don't fall, and there's only 3 screws that you need to worry about. That's it. And all you do is just have a screwdriver handy, and that's it. I don't carry around a screwdriver with me when I go fishing, but I have my Swiss Army knife and the can opener right here. Okay, that's what I use. It's perfect for it. Or the bottle opener, actually. Now, to change the spool, you just need to take this off. Take the spool off, replace it, and you're good to go. Now, this is one of the bearings that I was telling you about. This is one of the support bearings. So these guys kick in when there's load. Very easy to open this. This is all hand tightened, and you shouldn't tighten this a lot. Inside, you'll see your drag plate, and there's one bearing there, another bearing here, and inside there's another bearing that supports the free floating shaft. Very light. You'll see that it's cork, the drag washer. Now, if you want to upgrade this to a carbon washer, you could just purchase a carbon washer from Studio Ocean Mark or whatever dealer you have in your area, and then you could replace that. And it's a very easy operation. You just take the C-clip off like that, put the new washer on, lubricate it if you want, and it's done. There's a small spring there just to keep tension on the plate. You don't open this on in field, so it's not really something to mess around with when you're out in the field. Okay, so easy as that. Put it back just like that. This has a semi-waterproof seal, and these reels are not meant to be dunked in the water. So yeah, that's pretty straightforward. But they protect the drag washers from water intrusion. So that's pretty good. Now, you can see here that the main gear is actually quite big, and way bigger than, let's say, what you would find in an OSHA jigger. The pinion is strong. It's supported by a bearing at the back there. But as you can see, it was very easy to open. So if you just need to lubricate, put grease there, it's very easy. Put oil on the bearings. It's easy as that. To return the spool, very easy. Again, just put it through the shaft. Sometimes what happens is that the alignment is off with the spring, but very easy. All you have to do is just wiggle it a bit. Put this back on. As simple as that. Put the reel back together and you're back fishing. So this whole thing, even on the boat, is very simple to do. Plus, you don't lose screws because the screws don't pop off. Now, very important thing for me is that when I did the math on things, it occurred to me that for the price that you're paying for this, it kind of made sense because there's always a price for innovation. That is one. And two, if I use the modularity of this reel, I would basically carry less. So this particular reel with 2 or 3 spools would be able to load an extra spool of PE2, a PE 2.5, and a 3. So I not only have a backup spool, I would have two other line classes that I could use in different current situations, or I could load it up with PE3 or PE4 when I'm fishing shallow water and there happens to be big fish there. So I'll have more muscle to yank them out of structure. So, as a system itself, if you think about it, I would rather have one reel that could do several tasks as opposed to two, three other reels. It just made sense to me. So, I mean, if you think about it that way, what is cheaper? One reel with three spools or four reels? You do the math. It's really up to you to decide, but for me, it just makes sense. And it's really cheaper if you add all of it. It's cheaper than buying four reels and loading four different lines. Now, what I have to do is just take two, three rods, two, three spools, one reel, cheaper. All right. So I realized that access to these reels are not really that easy. There are several places on earth where this is ridiculously expensive because the supply is just so low or the demand is so low. It's because a lot of people just don't know what this reel is and what it can do. But definitely for me in the long run, I'll save with this system because, again, like I said, it's cheaper to buy one reel and three spools rather than actually having four reels. So it just made sense to me. Now, again, this is the standard model and it only gets kind of ridiculous from here. This reel isn't for everyone. We know that already, especially for the people that just don't understand what it is. Okay. However, it has become the gold standard for jigging. And it's really a very good system if you wrap your head around it and if you understand what it does and what it can do. Now, as I've mentioned, for me, it will become cheaper to actually just buy one reel that could do several jobs than to actually buy four reels. And I've done the math. This is the cheaper way. And that's, I guess, one of the ways you could look at it to save money in the long run. So, yeah, that's it. If you have questions, give me a heads up. Comment section. We'll have a healthy discussion on this reel. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of questions, I'm pretty sure, and a lot of reactions to this video, especially to this brand. So yeah, let's start the discussion. If you have questions, violent reactions, they're all welcome. That's it for this video. Thank you very much for sticking around. And again, if you haven't yet, please click on the subscribe button. Don't forget the bell so that you'll get a notification each and every single time I publish a video, and you'd be one of the first to watch. That's it for now. I shall see you in the next one. Class dismissed.